Hello everyone, right now we're going to be getting into the butterfly mod effect and we're going to load up Star Wars Jedi Power Battles. For those of you who are less initiated, it is a term that I loosely coined to basically be a dual homage to the great time travel movie star Ashton Kutcher called Butterfly Effect, as well as the constant upward struggle that many of us contend with emulators, cores, games, in general as far as fixing stuff and having other stuff inadvertently being broken. We call these bugs in some circles. Here we have veritable acting giants, Samuel Jackson and Liam Neeson there. Great all-around actors, love them and everything they've been in. And we'll get more into that as we do this little demonstration. And this game is going to crash on me within about 30 seconds. I'm going to show you the telltale sign of this game crashing. Yes, it's been a consistent issue over the last 2+ years on the mini classics, be it the NES, SNES, or PlayStation. From the get-go, you're going to have one huge telltale sign that the game has issues. And I'm going to show you this right here now. And this is without even having high definition mode enabled. And I'm hoping the power doesn't go out because you might have just heard that big boom in the background there. Just a couple days ago we had a crazy earthquake, which we haven't had in over a decade in this area. But you hear the chattering, which sounds like a predator. So when you hear that sound effect, it's pretty much a sign that the audio and video are going to desync within 20 to 30 seconds and the game is going to crash. This affects a select number of games on the PlayStation Classic, NES, and SNES Classics. And typically with the Nintendo 64 cores and this core, you can have a very small window to get into RetroPie settings and quit back to the main user interface. But no harm, no foul. You're not going to have any kind of corruption. You just have to load the game again. So we're going to load this right now. Some of these issues are actually present due to dynamic recompiler implementation, which we need for the hardware that we run these on. Whereas on PC, which are higher spec hardware in general, these are less of an issue. I'm going to go into RetroPie settings, quick menu, and this is going to go out in the update this Saturday. Options. And it is disable SMC checks. By default, this should be off. Only toggle it on for games that you know this is going to work with, or if you want to test a game that has previously not worked, and you can check it out. But obviously some games aren't going to work at all if you don't have BIOS. So I'd highly recommend making sure you have BIOS. So I'm going to toggle that on real quick. And I'm also going to show you how to make sure you have BIOS. Quick menu. I'm going to the quick menu section here. Information. Core information. I'm going to go down. I have present for all three BIOS. USA, Japan, and Europe. Even though it says optional, these are absolutely mandatory for a vast majority of games. So as a result here, I have, again, main menu. I'm going to go up to quick menu. Options. Now I do have that speed hack disable SMC checks enabled, so now I can resume the game safely, and it's not going to crash. I'm not going to have the chatter of the Predator anymore. And I do find it interesting, the backstory to Jean-Claude Van Damme being in the Predator movie initially, and he ended up getting fired because he kept doing roundhouse kicks and such. They didn't want the Predator to be a martial artist, but I kind of liked Jean-Claude Van Damme's idea. I think he would have been a great martial artist. But speaking of Samuel Jackson, many of you know him as the badass mofo in many movies such as Snakes on a Plane, Die Hard 3, Pulp Fiction, but he wasn't always that way. Several of the roles he's been in, he's actually played a very sweet actor. Even in Amos and Andrew, the great movie starring him and Nicolas Cage, he was less of the character you would see in stuff like Pulp Fiction. And some of you might not even be aware of the fact that if you're talking about gross movies of all time, I'm talking like the top grossing movies, which of right now we have Avatar and Infinity War. Avengers is pretty much two of the top contenders fighting for supremacy as far as the top two movies of all time. Samuel Jackson has starred in more of these movies than any other actor and has just been in movies overall that have grossed a crap load of money. But the game's not crashing here. This is fantastic. And speaking of time travel movies, I'm also a fan of stuff like Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3, even the cartoon series, some of the Back to the Future video games. And I kind of wonder if they ever do a reboot of Back to the Future, what actor would they even consider for him? They initially had Eric Stoltz as the actor, but they fired him because he had a bad attitude and wasn't quite fitted for the role. Even though I liked Eric Stoltz in many other movies, such as The Mask and even the Fly 2 sequel that didn't have Jeff Goldblum, but great movie. We're going to use L1 here and try to deflect the enemy fire here. Precise timing. Hopefully I'll pull this off. There we go. L1 at the precise moment the enemy fires at you. Good deal there. But other time travel movies that I like. Sorry for the flood there. I'm not going to censor it out. I'm a big fan of Kirk Douglas's Final Countdown, a great movie that deals with the kind of morality of being able to stop the invasion of the attack on Pearl Harbor whether or not you should affect time that way. But it was a great, great movie. Not to say, for those of you who are familiar with the movie, the recent Avengers Infinity War actually ripped off a plot element directly from Final Countdown, which I found kind of humorous. But Adrian Brody is another great actor. He was in a great time travel movie called The Jacket, which is very, very obscure, but a fantastic movie nonetheless. He was also in Summer Sam, a great movie directed by Spike Lee, and also starring Adrian Brody. And Spike Lee directed some movies that Samuel Jackson was in, so here we have the degrees of Kevin Bacon scenario here, where we have a link between Samuel Jackson and Adrian Brody. And speaking of Adrian Brody, he won an Oscar for the movie The Pianist. It kind of reminds me of this joke that I remember. I'm kind of failing here. I need to do more of this deflecting with the L1 here. Let's try this. Do my double jump mode activate there. We need a two-player mode activate going on here. And speaking of ports of these games, I'm a fan of the Game Boy Advance port, as well as the great ahead of its time Dreamcast port. I also like Gauntlet Legends on Dreamcast versus the PlayStation 1 port. I kind of wish they would have had Gauntlet Dark Legacy, which is my favorite Gauntlet game, period, along with Seven Sorrows on PlayStation 2 and Xbox. There we go, we got this down to an hour here. But I'm jumping around quite a bit with what I'm talking about conversation-wise there. But I'm a big, big fan of dirty jokes in general. And I don't normally go out of my way to tell jokes in my videos, because some of them are a little bit too dirty and not safe for work style jokes. This one I think I can get away with, though. We're going to talk about a joke that kind of reminds me of the Pianist movie in general, where a guy goes into a bar and he sees a leprechaun sitting at the bar. He goes up to the bartender and says, "What's this all about? Is that really a leprechaun?" He's like, "Yes, go ahead and try to ask him something." He goes up there and says, "Are you really a leprechaun?" And the guy's like, "Yes." "Go ahead and wish for something." So he wishes for $1 million. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, 1,000,000 ducks start flying every conceivable way, every direction. He goes up to the bartender and says, "What the hell? I asked for $1,000,000, and all of a sudden 1,000,000 ducks start flying everywhere." And then he points over to the piano and says, "You're telling me, what the hell do you think I'm going to do with a 10-inch pianist?" What do you think of that, guys and gals? I'm going to try to get more of these jokes in the videos, probably ones that aren't as dirty. I'm going to go back into quick menu options, and I'm going to basically disable speed hack, disable SMC checks, and have it off. And by the way, I give personal thanks to retro-wertz for helping out and getting this into the core, and also bslenul and ReyVGM for helping out testing this fix. And this fix is something that has basically been applicable to what I consider the spiritual predecessor to the RetroPie, the Pandora, a nice Android device which runs a lot of great stuff. But we're going to go into another game which also has this fix applied, and then we're going to get to the butterfly modifier, Looney Tunes Sheep Raider. And anytime we apply a fix, we test out some previously non-working games, and bslenul has done a great job of this. He went back and tested Sheep Raider and found out that the Jedi Power fix actually works for this game too. So once I load the game, I'm going to go into the options again, quick menu options, and I'm going to turn the disable SMC checks back on, resume the game, and this game will never get in-game without this fix applied. So this is another nice butterfly modified perk in action here. Now, I have to say, I've actually never played this game in the past. I'm a big fan of strategy games, RTS games in general. Love Shining Force, but this is a puzzle game. And Looney Tunes games and even Mickey Mouse games surprisingly have more good games than superhero counterparts would have. Like, how many good games does Superman have other than Death and Return of Superman, the great side-scrolling Final Fight brawler? Not so many, right? We need a good Superman game. Kind of like some of the better Spider-Man games that are out there. But we're going to play this for a brief moment, then we'll move on to some of the other games that have also had issues in the past. And again, this is going to be released on Saturday. It's going to go along with the PCX Rearmed Neon Core. The Unite and the POPs will not have this applied as of yet. We might apply it later on, but for right now, no. So we'll check this game out for a minute. And my first interpretation of seeing this before is I was thinking it was something like kind of like a poor man's Crash Bandicoot game. I didn't realize it was a puzzle game. So it's actually a pretty good game for what it's worth. And I'm a fan of even like the Roadrunner game that's on Super Nintendo, which is ahead of its time as well. It had a nice cartoony presentation. So we'll get into the nitty gritty here, and as we see, we're actually getting in game without it crashing with the disable SMC checks enabled. And by the way, I was actually trying to fix Jedi Power Battles last year, and that's where the butterfly modifier comes into play. I'll cover that after we get out of this video sequence here. So we're going to try just a little bit of running around here. We should have crashed by now, but we didn't, so this is awesome. So by rule of thumb, I would have this option disabled for all games and only toggle down for games that you actually have crash on you within like 30 seconds to a minute. You might have the predator chatter sound effect, as I mentioned. Okay, where's Ron Jeremy when you need him? I feel like I'm playing a 70s porn game here with this music. Dangerous bridge, one worse person at a time. So yes, it's actually better than Bubsy 3D, at least, to say it's at least at a minimum. But yes, this is a puzzle game, and I'll probably be coming back to it. But I'm going to toggle that option off. So yes, we have Jedi Power Battles, and now Looney Tunes Sheep Raider, both working awesomely. And disable SMC checks, and we're back in action there. Now, as I mentioned a minute ago, or a couple minutes ago, Jedi Power Battles was my original intention as far as trying to get the game fixed over a year ago. And with the fix that I thought of at the time, theoretically, was overclocking the games or underclocking them, and we had them directly core committed as far as overclocking. And it ended up fixing Parasite Eve 2, NBA Live 98, NBA Live 2001, and 2000. And I'm going to show you this fix. It is now a core option as well. Again, thanks to the help of retro-wertz. And you're going to need to do this manually the same way I just showed you. We'll load up NBA Live 98 real quick. And none of these 4 games are going to be playable unless you do this. So once you're in game, I'm going to show you this option. And I'd highly recommend disabling it on the other games. I'll show you the default and what you need to set it at here. So I'm going to the core options. And retro-wertz made it even easier here, because the default option should be 57, but for games like Parasite Eve 2, NBA Live 98, 2000, 2001, you need to set it exactly to 70. So for these 4 games, have it at 70, and for other games, you want to have it back to 57. But I'm going to set it to 70 real quick, and we'll start this game for a brief moment. Quick menu resume. And if you end up having it at the wrong setting, not 57, you may have games crash or stutter and so on. So make sure you have it at 70 for these problematic games and 57 for all other games. Just like we need the SMC disable check enabled for Jedi Power Battles and Sheep Raider, but not for other games. But if any of you run into games that have issues and you see these fixes apply to any of them, by all means let me know immediately, and I'll make sure people are knowledgeable about these incredible fixes. But here we have a game that's going to work perfectly now. That's awesome. I'm going to go back into options here. And there's another game that has issues as well, so I'm going to show you the fix for that while we're here. So I'm going back to 57. Again, 57 should be default. And if I go to low core right now, the cores that I have for Sony PlayStation cores, for the update, you're no longer going to need the PCSX rearmed standard core. All the coding is now merged into Neon, PIAPS, and Unite. You're only going to have these 3 variants for the update. Use Neon for most games. And for games like Metal Gear Solid or glitches that occur within FMV, full motion video games like Metal Gear Solid, you can use PIAPS. And Unite is another courtesy to check out. All 3 of these are video plugins. Neon should be the base one, which is going to be the default. And then you can try out PIAPS and Unite separately. So we're going to exit back to the main user interface, and we're going to try out the other problematic game. So we have 6 incredible games here that all work. And there's also Abe's Odyssey Exodus. If you try doing the disc swap to disc 2, it's not going to work unless you have the overclock set to 70 like with Parasite Eve 2. The other game that has issues is the great, awesome game Silhouette Mirage, which is just like Gunstar Heroes. And if you're a fan of Gunstar Heroes, you'll be right at home with this spiritual successor to the legacy, courtesy of the same great developer, Treasure. It is also translated by Working Designs, another company that I have utmost respect for, who have worked on countless treasures, no pun intended, for TurboGrafx CD, Sega Saturn, Sega CD, PlayStation 1, and PlayStation 2. And I particularly love the translation they did of Cosmic Fantasy 2 on TurboGrafx CD, which I'm hoping makes it to the TurboGrafx Mini next year. We'll get back to that in a moment, though. We're on the title screen for Silhouette Mirage. We're unable to start the game. Meowthed brought this to my attention, and bslenul and myself looked into this, and we found a nice placeholder solution right now. You go into RetroPie settings, quick menu options, and you're going to go down to pad 1 type and change it from standard to DualShock. And like the Parasite Eve 2 and Jedi Power Battles fixes, these should be applied as you need to apply them. I mean, case-by-case scenario, and then change back to the default parameters when everything is said and done to get back to square one and stay tried and true to the safety mechanism. So we're going to go back and resume the game here. And as I mentioned, they worked on Cosmic Fantasy 2. I'm talking about working designs as far as translating it. And I'm really hoping it makes it to the TurboGrafx Mini because Konami did buy the rights from Hudson, and we're going to get a TurboGrafx Mini after the Genesis Mini next year. And I'm really, really hoping they have Rondo of Blood on it because Konami did Rondo of Blood, which we've only had pretty much released on the PSP, Dracula X Chronicles, and more recently in the collection that were on both PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. We need more Castlevania, especially on the TurboGrafx Mini. But we'll also get games like Ninja Spirit, R-Type, and so on. Some of them great, long, lost, iRoom treasure classics. But, right here, I'm going to try to get to this tutorial portion because I don't care about reading manuals or doing tutorials or practice sessions. I really wish when I played the game Driver 1 and 2 on PlayStation I could skip right past the tutorial, but hence you cannot. And of course when you play games like Okami and Metal Gear Solid 4, Metroid Other M, Metal Gear Solid 5, you can't skip it either. And it gets pretty great in when you have 4 different versions of Okami from the PS2, PS3, PS4, and Wii versions, and all of them have the same 20-minute introduction. I used to pull up Netflix and actually watch a 20-minute episode or something while I'm trying to push the X button and skip past all of them. And think of talking to NPCs and accidentally doing the entire message frame and then pushing practice and having to do the whole gist of their entire conversation, the entirety of it all over again. No, I just want to play the game. We're going to go start the mission. And like in Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, we always had those night-to-day transitions, which worked really slow, like zombies walking in the old-style movies. Whereas in town, when you have to do the pertinent messages to actually beat the game, such as the red crystal messages, you can accidentally skip them and not see them again. But at the time, we all had Nintendo Power and the 1-800 tip line, so that wasn't a problem. That was really the only way any of us knew how to do the red crystal methodology in the game. No, I don't need to save this. And it's not exactly like your point A to point B Contra game with 8 directionals and a few weapons. This has a nice repertoire of moves. Let's check it out for a moment here. It has some really, really cool movesets if you do the tutorial. But I played the game before, so I kind of remember roughly how to do it. For instance, you can actually grab enemies and bitch slap them for money, and you can use the money to buy stuff from the shop later on in the game. We'll go up and hold the circle button on our controller. And try grabbing an enemy and bitch slapping it for some money. Come on, enemies, where are you? I need some money. There we go. Bitch slapping. And we also have a Captain Marvel move where you can tap down on the controller twice and then do a double tap and the Captain Marvel move. Works for me. We just want to get into the game a little bit here. And then we have a special move here, holding down L2 and R2. That works for me. But they did a fantastic job in this. I love the translation and the development, of course. It does have a little bit of a spiritual set move, a little bit like Ikaruga in Outland. Okay, let's get into the Captain Marvel mode again. That works. It kind of reminds me of Contra, should we say Hardcore Uprising, where you could actually play as a Strider Haru-style character. But great game, and it works phenomenally well in here. We're going to go back into options here and change it back to the default setting here, standard. And I'm going to show you one more game, because people keep laughing when I say one more game, then I end up doing 2 or 3 more games. We're going to do another game that actually had stuttery issues, and it's working great with this update. And if you're a fan of on-rail shooting games and stuff like Star Fox, you're going to love this game. I'm going to go right to PlayStation 1. This is a Japanese game called Galaxian 3. And it's made by Namco, the same company that made Starblade. And Starblade is the inspiration for games like Star Fox. And this game right here is actually like a multiplayer Star Fox game in essence. And this version actually is a 4-player game, but in Japan, you're actually able to play, I believe, between 16 and 24 players. And this is kind of the tail end of the Laserdisc technology, stuff like Dragon's Lair and such, and a mixture of polygon-style graphics with games like Star Fox. It is a nice amalgamation of awesomeness there. And we all know basically games like Galaxian and Galaga to start with, but let's check this out for a moment here. And by the way, this also does run nice with high definition mode activate, which I'll show you in a moment here. Definitely check it out and then turn it back off if it doesn't work, but I'll show you exactly how to check it again. And yes, you can do 4-player mode activate on here. When I do that tutorial on 2 and 4-player mode activate, I'll load up this game again for that tutorial portion. Get back to the game here. And remember, when you're playing a Japanese game, the X button and the circle button are reversed. So it actually moves forward in the normal USA game, but in the Japanese game, it moves backwards and vice versa with the circle button. But great game here. Let's check this out for a moment here. Definitely do a 4-player mode activate on this game, without a doubt. And it really feels like I'm playing a Laserdisc game here. So I'm going to go into RetroX's quick menu options, and we're going to turn on high definition mode activate and see if it works there. And again, we can turn it off when we're done. Enhanced resolution, and you're going to turn both of these on. And when you're done, you can turn it back off. But if you run into a game that stutters, like if you try doing this with Die Hard Trilogy, just turn them back off. So we have them both on right now. We're going to see if the frame per second stays stable. And it's running fine. Awesome. So this is a game that runs nice with high definition mode activate. And it's a beautiful game. The polygons and full motion video amalgamation works out great here. And Starblade is on PlayStation 1, Arcade, as well as Sega CD. So check out Starblade and then check out this game, and you get a nice gist of the actual the complexity differential between the two. We'll do the first stage. It really does feel like I'm playing the Star Fox arcade game right now. Okay. And I can definitely imagine playing this like 16 players online. That'd be great. They need to bring a game like this back to PlayStation 4 and or Xbox One or even Nintendo Switch. But a great tail end for the video. And they were actually supposed to have a Gradius game that was 3D like this before too. I'm not sure if it ever happened, but it may have. And I would especially like to have the finality of the spiritual successor to Space Harriers called Planet Harriers, but you can still run that on emulator right now. I'm going to have to do that in the showcase video, because it has no chance at all of hell of running on the mini classics for right now at least. But it is a great game, a multiplayer Space Harrier game to boot. But definitely one of the better on-rail shooters that I played. It really looks great. And the arcade technology behind this is actually pretty incredible for the time frame that it came out. We should be nearing the first little boss encounter here in a moment. There we go. Feels like Star Fox all the way here. And again, Starblade came out before Star Fox. I think this game came out around the same time as Star Fox. And we'll get to the second stage briefly, and then we're going to call this one a day, guys and gals. And then I'll have the update out by Saturday. And we need our 16 to 24 player mode activate to take out all these 24 enemies on the screen at once. Now we're going to do a ground level. The transition is awesome. Again, it really does feel like I'm playing a nice polygonal and Laserdisc style game here. Great mashup between the two. But I hope you enjoyed the video, guys and gals. I'm going to go back in and disable the HD, because it should be off by default. We're going to go back to it. And enhanced resolution, off. Then we're going to basically quit, and we're calling this a day. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys and gals, and the update that's coming out on Saturday.